We make sure that everybody has their supplements ordered, ready to go as soon as they're done surgery. Vitamin A immediately. There's stuff out there like Juven and Mend, which is kind of an all-in-one powder that we do for 14 days, and that's going to have their HMB and a little bit of collagen, a little bit of magnesium, a little bit of zinc. And so we like them to get that in twice a day. It's an easy way to do it, but we probably will also supplement with more magnesium, B vitamins, vitamin C, um, selenium and then zinc also.
Welcome back to the True Sports Physical Therapy Podcast. Today's guest taught me a ton about nutrition. Unfortunately, I feel like the sports PT does not have an outstanding background, and we don't get it necessarily in our graduate education. You have to do a lot of homework to really know what kind of information to give your athletes and your patients as far as nutrition. That's why I brought on Jaclyn Sklaver. Jackie did an awesome job of explaining exactly what you need going into surgery, coming out of surgery. But even if you're not a surgical patient, how do you handle your nutrition to get optimal results? Jackie got her master's in human nutrition. She has worked with hundreds of NBA, NFL, and Olympic athletes, and she really has everything dialed in as to how to get the very best from a nutritional side, and it is information that we need to be handing to our patients. So I think you're going to get a ton out of today's conversation. As always, I want feedback. Let us know who you want to have next. Jackie came highly recommended by some of our listeners out in Australia, so thank you so much for that because it was an awesome conversation. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Jaclyn Sklaver. Welcome back to the True Sports Physical Therapy Podcast. We got Doctor. Can I call you Doctor?
I
want to call you Doctor.
I know.
Okay, I'm going to call you Jaclyn Sklaver. Jaclyn Sklaver is one of the world's best licensed dietitian and sports nutritionist. How's that for an intro?
That's a great intro. I'll take
Okay.
it.
I appreciate that. Okay, Jackie, thanks for making time. You are not even in the continental US. Tell us where you're coming from. Tell us what you're about so we can dive into nutrition as it pertains to the rehabbing athlete.
Okay. I've been working with professional athletes for about 10 years, but I also work with active gym goers, everybody from your everyday gym goer through your professional athlete. I am based in the United States. I just happen to be with an athlete in Madrid right now. But still happy to jump on this. I work actually internationally. I'm always on the go and always traveling around.
Yeah, I could tell from your Instagram, it looks like you are in way fancier places than Baltimore, Maryland. So thank you so much for making time. I really appreciate it. I want to start with Zion and Luka, because that is one of my favorite posts that I have seen on your Instagram, which is a great follow. So I highly encourage all of our sports PTs that are listening to go ahead and follow you. Tons of information. Also, some really good hot takes. You just had a hot take on Zion and Luka. They dropped a bunch of weight. They look like they're in the best shape of their lives. You think they might be using some GLPs. Tell me what led you to that, and then give me your take on utilizing GLPs and how to do it, let's say, intelligently.
So just so you know, this is completely opinion, my professional opinion. No one's ever told me that they were using GLP-1. My thought is that both of them have had a history of having trouble dropping weight year after year. And yes, Zion has dropped it, but he gains it right back. And Luca went through that whole hard time where they even gave him like a 11 or 14-day hiatus last fall to lose weight. He still didn't. As we all know, we went to Lakers. People don't understand just because you're a professional athlete does not mean you're Superman. Changing nutrition, changing your diet is one of the hardest things an athlete can do. Showing up to practice and training is easy. Not easy. They love it. They love doing it. Changing food is one of the sticking points. And so these guys, year after year, have not made that change. And then all of a sudden, we see a big weight drop in a small period of time that actually looks typical of like a GLP-1 look, right? Weight loss kind of has a pattern to how you look. And you see really in Zion's face more than anything, that kind of really like what we call Ozempic face look. I actually just saw a video of him shirtless, I guess, in Australia. They were doing videos, and his body comp looks great. Don't get me wrong; he's in the best shape ever. But I think in the time period that they did it, and knowing his history of having trouble losing weight, and I think same with Luca, that there could have been a GLP-1 involved.
Okay, so you're right. We see this Ozempic look, and we see it in athletes and patients all the time. These guys are going into an 82-game season. How do you think, or how would you advise them to use GLPs intelligently?
I'm going to be honest with you, with basketball, I don't think there's any room for GLP-1 in season because we have to keep weight on people. I've worked with a ton of NBA players. I have never had an NBA player where my job was to keep their weight down during the season. Very rarely, maybe at like closer to the end on like a big, they
Hmm.
might struggle a little bit closer to the end of their career, but usually it's keeping weight on them in season. So I think with NBA, it probably not don't need it. NFL, a little different when we have some of these linemen that have metabolic syndrome that have probably had it since high school that are showing signs of diabetes and high blood pressure and all of this, all these like obesity. Potentially, I think there could be room for it in the NFL. And I have spoke to some of my athletes about it. They're scared, they hear all these things and they want to be healthy, but I do think it could be a game changer for those guys, especially with inflammation. How it works in season, that would have to, a nutritionist would have to work very closely with the doctor and the dosages and which one they're on and how they're doing it. There's a lot to it. I do not recommend it for an athlete in the NBA in season at all. Look, you have to be able to eat as many calories as possible. It becomes so hard. You're on the road, you're on the go, you have games. Trying to get those calories in is so hard to begin with. And then not to have an appetite, to be honest, a lot of guys already don't have an appetite because they're in fight or flight, or they're upset because they lost a game and they don't want to eat, or they're excited because they won a game and they don't want to eat. It's a mission. It's a mission. So to take anything that might take their appetite away, I don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah. Now, if you're the heavier lineman, or maybe you're big in the NBA, but let's say heavier lineman, um, how important? How do you counsel using a GLP and getting enough load through the muscle so you don't see the muscle wasting? Because I think that's a big piece of utilization of the GLPs.
So I have to tell you, I can't prescribe GLP-1, so I don't. I work hand in hand with a nurse practitioner, and so she handles that stuff.
Mhm.
But what we see is with the GLP-1s and the muscle loss, I mean, we don't have any athletes that have come out and said they're on it, except maybe like Serena, right? She's come out and said she's on it. And I think the muscle loss is from people like your regular people who are not eating enough calories, and the first thing that's going to go, muscle wasting, right? We're going to lose our muscle. I don't know what type of diet, let's just say, hopefully they're eating enough calories. I think it's possible. I know it is. I do have clients I work with who keep their muscle mass. Absolutely. Because another thing people don't understand with GLP-1 is you still have to learn how to eat. You still have to learn, if you've never eaten correctly, you still need your base to be there. You have to learn what macros and what calories you need and the right foods. And if you don't do that, that's when we start to see like the hair loss and the nutrient deficiencies and the muscle wasting. But if you're eating the right calories, you're still going to lose weight and you're still going to get to your goals, but you're not going to have all these horrible side effects. A lot of the side effects are coming from eating very, very low calories.
Okay. Okay. So it is possible to compete at a high level and be on a GLP. It is possible to keep your muscle mass and be on a GLP. You just have to be intelligent about it. And that probably takes a lot of game planning on the strength and conditioning side to make sure you're offsetting potentially some of those side effects. But you bring up a good point, which I think really there is a dearth of knowledge in my field around nutrition and how it pertains to recovery. So,
Mhm.
what are some non-negotiables, some basics of nutrition that you would educate all the PTs listening that are imperative going into a surgical procedure?
The surgery. Okay. First things first, if we know that your patient is going to have surgery ahead of time, please send them to a dietitian ahead of time because my surgical protocol, my rapid recovery protocol starts before surgery. It's a prep before surgery because we know that even just having the clear liquids before surgery can help prevent catabolism after surgery. There's so much research out there. And so what happens a lot of times is people are like, "Oh, well, I'm going in for surgery or I just had surgery. I'll get back to you when I'm back playing." And I'm like, "No, no, no, no. We know that your body metabolizes nutrients differently. What some essential amino acids become conditionally essential, so we have to supplement with them. There are micronutrients that we have to provide to you, and when we do that, we can actually speed up recovery by upwards of 30%. And we can reduce scarring, minimize scarring. We get return to play faster. There's so much that can be done, but it's literally the first week after surgery is when this has to start because that is when your body is in that stage where it needs everything. Plus, we prepare people ahead of time with what foods they're going to have, a meal prep, shakes, whatever. So when as soon as they get home, they're ready to go, even if they don't have an appetite. And then also their bowel prep because if you had anesthesia or if you're on painkillers, the worst thing after surgery is being constipated. So there's a lot more that goes into it than what people realize. And it's that first week after surgery that we want to start the metabolic process of healing.
Okay, so that's the time period that is so essential. I love hearing this from you because we get patients that are laying down scar tissue, and it's really amazing. Sometimes it looks like a crapshoot as to who's going to lay down too much scar tissue, come out with a stiff knee or a stiff shoulder, and it sounds like you might have some of the answers there. So walk me through that rapid recovery protocol going into a surgery or immediately coming out.
Sure. So the first 12 to 24 hours, you have reduced energy expenditure, everything's kind of just chill. But then the next 2 to 7 days, about a week, you're in a hypermetabolic stage. Your metabolism's actually increased. And depending on how much trauma happened to your body, it's probably about 1.2 times your typical resting metabolic rate. And most people are like, oh, I'm not doing anything, I'm just sitting around, and I also don't have an appetite. A little depression kicks in after surgery, whatever it might be, and they're not eating. But your body has an increased demand for calories. Why? Because you're rebuilding. I mean, it's just like going to the gym, whether it's just muscle, whether it's ligaments, soft tissue, bone. That metabolic process is so heavy on your body, it needs calories and it's taking them in. And your protein breakdown goes up as well. So we have a higher demand for protein. We're looking at about 20% more protein in that time period also. And then we go into weeks 1 through 3 with after post-op, and that's when we're going to be having like our remodeling. And we then can drop the calories down to a regular, we don't have to do 1.2 anymore, but it's still important that we're getting in enough calories that time period, because just like if you go to the gym and you're lifting weights and you're not eating enough calories, you're not going to be able to build tissue. And we
Yeah.
need to build this tissue. We really do. And so there's that. There's the calories, there's the protein, but then we also have micronutrients that are needed at that time and amino acids.
Okay, so you said we have a 20% increase in demand in that early phase post-op. So that means you're going to look for 1.2 grams per body weight of protein. Is that
Oh
safe
no. Oh, per pound, you're saying? Yeah,
per
pound
pound?
wise, not kilos. Yeah, yeah, probably. Um, I would do about, because I always do kilos, like 2.2 kilos. So yeah, like 1.2 would make sense.
That's because you're in
Um,
Madrid. Okay, so you're in
no, that's
what?
because no, so really in nutrition, we actually do formulas. Everything goes off of kilos. So when I do someone's nutrition plan, I turn everything into their weight into kilos. When we do carbohydrate output for athletes, it's in kilos. Everything's really in kilos, not in pounds. So the
Okay,
rest of the
okay.
world.
That yeah, there is the rest of the world that we should be concerned with. Okay, so let's talk in kilos. Give me protein that we should be hitting post-op. Give me carbohydrates. Give me fats, and then talk micronutrients.
Sure. So the protein is, well, first we need to figure out what your calorie intake is going to be, right? And then we're going to figure out your protein is going to be about a 20% increase. So yeah, 1.2 times your body weight. Um, People think, oh, I'm sitting around, I don't need carbohydrates, but you do. You still need carbohydrates for this recovery process. And then fats go from there. And the fats are always the last thing that we figure out in what people need. But the carbohydrates are going to be dependent upon how active you are. Like, did you have a surgery where you could still continue to do upper body? Are you going into PT the next, a couple days later? Every surgery is different. Are you stuck in bed? So I think it really depends on each person on what we're going to do for their carbohydrates.
Okay, so let's get a little more specific then. So you have ACL surgery and meniscus surgery. You're non-weight bearing, but at least in true sports, we want to see you post-op day one. So you're doing rehab on the knee. You're doing your straight leg raises, you're doing your clems, you're getting some load through the lower extremity, and we're expecting you to keep up with upper body. Walk me through what they should be eating in that instance.
So you're saying this is like the day after surgery?
Day after surgery, yes.
People are
That's when I
showing up
want to
day
see
after
them.
surgery?
Yes.
Okay.
Day of.
Um, Yeah, I mean, but like I said, we've got to wait like at least 24 hours. But at this point, I would take, what do I normally do for your total daily energy expenditure? I'm going to take your resting metabolic rate. I'm going to multiply it by 1.2, probably, depending on your surgery. Then I'm going to do your activity multiplier. So in a normal situation, we take your resting metabolic rate and we do your activity multiplier. But here we have to put on the 1.2 before that.
Okay.
Does that
So
make
so
sense?
every yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So everything is 1.2. So if everything is 1.2, where does that put us at with carbohydrates?
Well, with the carbohydrates, it depends on how active this person is. So, I mean, I'd have to look at I would say, you said they're doing what? What activity exactly? Are they
Yeah,
walking around? Are they able to walk?
they're able to crutch.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends. I have to like sit there and really look at their plan and what their entire day, their entire week looks like it's hard for me to just like come up with it on the spot. It's not going to be huge. It's not going to be like a 5 times multiplier, that's for sure.
Okay. Okay. So, and how do we calculate resting metabolic rate?
I use Mifflin St. Joar. There's a bunch of different formulas out there, but that's kind of been my tried and true formula.
What the hell is that? I told you
Uh,
we don't know anything.
yeah, that's one I can't really just spout that out. It's a big scientific formula, but you can Google it. It's online. So I use Mifflin St. Joar. If you know somebody's body fat percentage, there's other ones out there, but a lot of times people don't know their body fat percentage, and this works just fine without that. So I use that. Then I'll do their activity multiplier on top of that. Now, here's the thing. In general, in life, people overestimate their activity. This is one of the biggest things that we see. I'm sure you see it too. And so if I leave it up to other people, they're going to think that they're like, 1.55 or 1.7. But most of your regular person who's working out like 4 days a week at the gym for an hour is probably and lives in like a city where they're walking or they're getting 10,000 steps in a day. If they're trying to lose weight, I usually put them at like a 1.35. And people think that they do so much more exercise, and I'm like, yeah, it's really not that much. So that's the thing. Like, are you walking around all day? Are you in a major city? What are you doing outside of the gym? Are you sitting at a desk all day? Are you working out for an hour and you're walking through a major city and you're doing cardio? So that's just different for everybody depending on what their life is like outside of the gym.
Yeah, if I'm so that makes a lot of sense, and I'm totally comfortable with. Well, it depends as your answer. As the PT, how do I get them to calculate how much energy expenditure they perform in a given day? Like, what is a simple checklist to kind of move through so that we can get a feel for that?
Yeah, I mean, you need them to tell you I have just have people tell me their schedule. What does your schedule look like this week? Are you doing if you're doing sports, are you having a lift and a conditioning? Are you having a position also? Are you doing 3 times a day? How many are you doing Pilates also some days, a yoga, a recovery? What's your active recovery look like? Everyone's different in what that looks like too, right? Some people might just take a walk with their significant other, and some people's active recovery, I'm like, oh, that's my cardio day, so you really have to have them just walk through their whole schedule and remember to ask them those little things because they'll leave it out. Oh, yeah, yeah. Me and my friend do hot yoga twice a week also. Oh, I have
Hmm.
a private Pilates instructor that comes by twice a week also.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah, sometimes I jump on Peloton and I'm like, okay, so you have your lifting, your conditioning, and your position, and you're doing Peloton at night. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I could see how that expands to put together a program. I'm just amazed at the 30% number you throw out in terms of recovery process. It's really a powerful thing, and I think it's something that we're leaving on the sidelines as a rehab professional that we could gain a ton by just thinking about and beginning to educate appropriately. How do you handle the supplement conversation coming out of surgery? What supplements are non-negotiable? And what are some supplements that you can kind of wait until later in their recovery process?
We make sure that everybody has their supplements ordered, ready to go as soon as they're done surgery. Vitamin A immediately. There's stuff out there like Juven and Mend, which is kind of an all-in-one powder that we do for 14 days, and that's going to have their HMB and a little bit of collagen, a little bit of magnesium, a little bit of zinc. And so we like them to get that in twice a day. It's an easy way to do it, but we probably will also supplement with more magnesium, B vitamins, vitamin C, um, selenium, and then zinc also. So we have a pretty strong protocol. Also probiotics if they've been on antibiotics. And then we do that for about 2 weeks, and then we're going to start once inflammation starts to go down a little bit. We'll start to bring in some anti-inflammatories. So we'll look at our SPMs, which are our concentrated fish oils, and then some curcumin. But we don't want to do that too soon. We want to make sure we pass that inflammatory stage.
Okay, so that's also interesting to know that there are going to be different time points at which you want to hit different supplementation for different reasons.
Mhm.
So I love that. I would not have known that if we were not having this conversation. Talk to me about how that affects scar tissue.
So there's a lot of reasons behind that. I mean, the zinc is one of the things that's going to help with like DNA replication. I've directly with scar tissue that I'm not 100% sure about. I know with scarring itself that it helps with the skin reformation, and so that having these nutrients are helping the skin rebuild, and we're seeing less scarring. Um, I'm just trying to think about the actual scar tissue. I know selenium is a big one. I know zinc is a big one for like wounds and scar tissue. Um, I
And
just
do you
the science off the
recommend?
top of my head. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all right. Do you recommend that athletes find those individually, or is there an all-in-one supplement that they can
So
go
that's what I
to?
was saying. Like the Juven is something that's really easy to package, but it's not enough. So no, you do need it. There's a large supplement protocol that we do ahead of time with people. We make it easy. We have them order it. And they're not super expensive. The Juven's probably the most expensive thing because that's out of our control. But vitamin C and zinc and those are pretty cheap supplements. So it doesn't get too crazy. The fish oils, the SPMs cost a little bit more. But yes, definitely individually. I think it's going to be hard to find these things all together in one. You definitely don't want a multi because you're not going to get enough of the nutrients in that multi. You know how they make supplements is each element is bonded to something, right? It has to be bonded in order for it to go into this pill. So depending on how big the actual element is how much they can get into a pill, unless you want pills this big, right?
Mm-hmm.
How much can you actually get into a pill when you start putting a ton of different vitamins in there?
Okay, here's
So
a really stupid question. SPM stands for?
So SPMs are pro-resolving mediators, which are actually just a really concentrated form of fish oil that we are seeing amazing research in for post-operative recovery, with tissue repair, with helping with pain, because they work on the COX-2 pathway, with pain as well. Oh, another thing I really like once we get to the stage is to do a systemic enzyme. So what happens with systemic enzyme is this is the one that helps with scar tissue. I knew I had one. So if you have dead cells that are in the area, they're going to prevent your body from creating new collagen, creating new tissue, creating, being able to because you have dead tissue there, right? So you can't build new tissue. When you have systemic enzymes, it basically clears out the dead tissue so that your body can start to produce new tissue. So I really like to use systemic enzymes for that.
Love that. And when would that fit in the recovery? That's post 2 weeks?
No, we could do systemic enzymes starting from the beginning, actually.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're starting on the enzymes, and then you have your probiotics, you have your curcumin, you have your psyllium. All of those kind of
No
get
psyllium.
no psyllium.
No.
When does
Well,
psyllium
I
come in?
mean, you could have what this you just saw selenium. Selenium.
Selenium.
Selenium is an antioxidant, different
O-
than psyllium, which is a fiber. Which I'm
Okay.
not opposed to you doing fiber either, because you're probably going to be constipated. But yeah,
Okay. So those come in at specific times. And where do we find this entire protocol?
I don't have it online. People have to hire me for it. It's something I
Okay.
create. I mean, I'm
Okay.
sure there if you Google stuff, it's out there. But this is something that we've created and that we walk our clients through during this time period.
Okay, so this is a good time to tell everyone how they find you and how they hire you because this is imperative. And so, for all the sports PTs listening, when you have a patient and you're going to have tons of them that need this nutritional counseling, just tell us how to find you. Usually, I wait till the end of this conversation, but tell us
Yeah.
now.
I mean, the easiest way is Instagram, right? And it's Athletes Nutrition, but it's spelled ATHLEATS, like eats, Athletes Nutrition. And then my website's athletesnutrition.com.
Okay, so we can go there. We can bring you on board and at least get some of your brain to tell us exactly what we're taking, when we're taking it to optimize our outcomes. So I love that. Thanks for sharing that. I want to shift gears a little bit because it's such a hot topic. I want to get your take globally on the peptide world.
Yeah, so I've been involved in peptides for 15, maybe more years. There was the underground peptide market for years that if you were in the bodybuilding world, everybody was doing it. And now it's now more popular. And now there's actually compounding pharmacies that are making it instead of somebody in their basement in Florida. So, and also overseas, it's been huge. Peptides have been huge. I mean, most of them were started in Eastern Europe, right? So, the peptide world is very interesting. I've now doctors are prescribing it. So let's first talk about the fact that it is a moneymaker for doctors, right? Because they put you on a monthly subscription and you are going to be, that's how they make their money, really. With TRT and with peptides, it's a reorder monthly subscription. And so there are different ones out there. And I just warn people sometimes to make sure whatever they're taking is not too much or repetitive of the same thing. We have our GHRP, which is our growth hormone. And, that the growth hormone peptide can also grow any other cell in your body, right? So how many like GHRPs do you want to be on? It's something you have to be aware of. There's so many different peptides. We have the BPC-157, which, people have the body protecting compound, which is actually made from gastric juices. And people do use that after injury, trying to prevent surgery also to try and get rid of pain. Thing is, we don't have any research on that. Like we don't have anybody who said, okay, I did this after surgery and it helped, or before surgery. We do have some research on it helping with gut health, and that's because it is a gastric peptide, and that's the only research we have. So that TB-500 and BPC-157 combination that we're hearing, a lot of people are like, wow, it helped me so much, which is great. I mean, placebo effect is a great thing too if it
Yeah.
helped. But
Yep.
who really knows? You know, people ask me like, does it help you? I can't honestly tell you that. I don't know. Was I also doing physical therapy? Yes. Did I also lay off of that injury? Yes. Was I? So it's hard to say. And everyone has to be honest with themselves of like, did it help or did you do 700 things? Did you start eating better and start physical therapy and start BPC? You know,
Yeah,
so
it's hard. It's
it's
hard
hard
to
to say.
tell. Yeah, I recently had a rotator cuff repair come in. He was doing the BPC 157, and I said, "How do you think it's helping?" He said, "It's hard to tell because he's doing all the other things you mentioned, right?" So that's why I'm asking you, like, if you've seen any research that was able to isolate a BPC as an example to see its effect. Sounds like it's not out there
I don't
yet.
think it's out there. I don't think we have anything out there yet on that. Like I said, I do know for gut health it's out there, and it's just really one study. And the other interesting thing about BPC, it is the only peptide that you can actually take orally because it is a gastric peptide. Your body is able to absorb it in your gut, but the other ones, the molecules are too big. So if anybody is selling a peptide that is in an oral form, and people ask me this a lot, I'm like, it's not going to work. You do have to inject them.
Okay. Yeah, but even that, it's worthwhile hearing that because I think there's so much out there on the market and not enough information to back up a lot of these prescriptions. I think it's worthwhile doing a deeper dive. Do you have any feel or opinion on why a governing body like the NFL would outlaw 157?
Yeah, I actually used to use it with my NFL players before it was outlawed because they feel like it has a competitive edge. You know, first of all, they don't want people injecting themselves with anything anyway. It's an unregulated market. It's a compounded farm. It's not a pharmaceutical, right? So, you know, even if the NFL and NBA, if there was something on that ban list that you actually needed and could get a doctor's prescription for, they do make exceptions. There is nothing, there's no peptides that a doctor it's not coming from an FDA pharmacy where we actually know what's in it. That's probably a big reason behind it also. So I don't think that they feel like it's a miracle drug. I think they feel like it's an unregulated drug and who knows what's really going into it.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And that clarifies it a little bit. Tell me about what we can do to prevent muscle atrophy. I got a lot of patients going into surgery um, that the big fear is how much muscle wasting will transpire following surgery. What are some ways to prevent that nutritionally?
Before surgery, you know, you can only have your meal, right? Like 12 hours before, but you want to have a solid meal with carbs and with protein. And then I would say like essential amino acids. I normally don't recommend essential amino acids, but we do see that post surgery it does help prevent, you know, muscle breakdown. 2 to 3 hours before surgery, and I know typically they say don't have anything, but talk to your doctor. It is a clear liquid. You can have 12 grams of essential amino acids. And
Okay.
this is the new protocol
Why do
because
you,
it's,
I
it's a
love
clear
that.
liquid.
Okay. Why do you usually not recommend essential aminos?
Because if you're eating enough protein, it's a waste. We see from the research that you don't, and if you're vegan, then maybe. If you're somebody who's not getting enough protein, absolutely. But we've seen from the research that if you're eating enough protein throughout the day, amino acids are just a waste of money. And like you could spend that $30 somewhere else.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. I saw in a fascinating post you put up about creatine. So
Mhm.
it is the most researched supplement that's out there. Can you give us a quick breakdown on things we should be thinking about when supplementing with creatine?
Sure. So creatine, and we've been saying it for years that people need creatine, right? Now there's this research coming out that is saying that, you know, 10 to 20 grams helps your brain activity. We've been using it neuroprotectively for years with athletes that are impact athletes, like MMA athletes, and then of course football players, because we have seen neuroprotective aspects of it for years. Now they're starting to see research that it helps with women's hormones also. So there's really no downside to taking creatine. People will say, oh, well, I get stomach cramps. The old school creatine, because the molecule needs to be dissolved, if you take a monohydrate, it's going to pull water into your gut. And if you see sometimes like creatine is a little gritty, but now we have a micronized creatine. So that makes the molecule smaller, makes it easier to dissolve. And if you kind of dissolve it in like a room temperature water first and then put it in your drink, you shouldn't have any stomach problems with it. So if people are having stomach problems, I would think that it's because it's not fully dissolved when it goes into their stomach. Um, it does not dehydrate you. People think it dehydrates you. It does not. That's an old school, like, I don't know where that came from. Definitely a football field somewhere. But people are like, oh, my coach said it's hot out. I can't have creatine. I'm like, no, it does
Not
not
true.
dehydrate. Yeah.
Okay, love that. What about kidney function? Because I've heard that as well.
So creatinine is the byproduct of creatine. However, it does not degrade right away. And so when we're seeing high creatinine levels in people that are athletic, it's usually their muscle breakdown that's not coming from creatine. If you are healthy and you have healthy kidney function, you have nothing to worry about. Now, if you're somebody who is like having kidney failure, we're going to think twice about it. But if you're a healthy person, a lot of times, most of the times, athletes, their labs, even your average gym goer who's at building muscle and breaking it down all the time, they're going to have higher creatinine levels because it's coming from muscle breakdown. There are some checkpoints and different tests that we can do to balance it out to make sure everything's okay with your kidneys, but you do not need to worry about your kidney health from creatine.
Love that. Thank you for dispelling those myths. It's really helpful. Number one, does not dehydrate you. Number two, if you have a healthy functioning kidney, you're not going to be damaging your kidneys with creatine supplementation. And also, thank you for pointing out that it should be commensurate with your body weight. I don't know where this came from, that 5 grams is just what we go with. I always found it perplexing that it's one of the only supplements that the dosage was flat, that it was irrespective of how heavy the athlete is. Yeah, it didn't make any sense. So you're saying that there's far more research linking how much creatine you should be taking commensurate with your body weight, and that 0.3 grams per kilogram of body weight is a good rule to go with. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Okay. I love that. Okay.
Well, 0.03, not 0.3, because you'll be taking so much. 0.03.
Obviously, 0.03.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much for clarifying those. It's refreshing to have a guest that talks as fast as I do. So I think no, it's great. I think we were able to cover a ton. So I really appreciate that. Give me just like a quick snippet on just absolute musts that a PT needs to share with their patient going into and coming out of surgery so that we can kind of put a bow on this conversation.
Just like everything else with sports performance and training, you have to be fueling your body. You have to be eating enough food when you're coming out of surgery. You need to be eating healthy going into surgery, right? You don't want to be giving yourself inflammatory foods. You want to go in as healthy as you can and come out and treat your body as healthy as possible, because it's like a baby at this point. It's very fragile, and you want to do everything you can to nurture it and help it build. And so I think that these are messages that are really important. Like, even if you've never really been healthy, I've been eating McDonald's my whole athletic career. Well, this is not the time to do it. And so just remember that what goes into your body right now is how your body is going to heal.
It is clearly something that my field doesn't know enough about. And I think you've done a great job of filling in some of those gaps in this brief conversation. So, Jackie, I really appreciate the insight. Just remind us again how we can all find you, because I think a lot of sports PTs are going to be blowing up your inbox now.
It's Athleats Nutrition, spelled ATHLEATS, nutrition. So athletesnutrition.com, Athleats Nutrition on Instagram. And then what's cool about my YouTube is it's just my Instagram shorts, but you can search it by topic, where like you can't do that on Instagram. So sometimes I like to tell people just go to YouTube and search creatine on my YouTube, and that's easier.
Love that. Okay, awesome. Jackie, thank you so much for applying your expertise and sharing some of it to the sports PTs around the world. You've been an absolute pleasure. Guys, let us know what you loved. I'm sure you have more questions, so please reach out to Jackie on Instagram. She is super responsive at all hours of the day. It's really impressive. So make sure you go check her out. Guys, tell us what you loved. Tell us what you hated. Find us, True Sports PT, on Instagram. That's all I got. Thanks so much for listening. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.